Well, welcome back to the Merck Method, where we explore mental wellness, growth, and the human experience. Today's episode is sponsored by Radiant Beauty Collective by Rach. If you love skincare that actually works and feels amazing, you'll love Rach's customized facials. Right now, gift certificate specials are available for a limited time, making it the perfect gift or well-deserved treat for yourself. If you're in the Rockford area, check out Radiant Beauty Collective by Rach and grab one before they're gone. I will actually have the booking link in the description of this podcast episode, as well as the Instagram page, so you can see all the specials that she is running. So I wanted to talk a little bit about grief around the holidays on this episode, because I know that this is a difficult subject to talk about, especially with Christmas coming up in about a week. The holidays, are supposed to be joyful, right? We have the lights that we put up. We hear the certain Christmas music. I love Christmas music. There's always certain Christmas traditions. There's always laughter, full tables, familiar smells of people making cookies or maybe even going to church, with the family and friends. But yet, for so many people, this time of year really carries a different weight. If you're listening to this episode and feeling that heavy, empty, numb, or even angry weight, please know this episode is for you, okay? Grief doesn't pause for holidays. It doesn't disappear because the calendar says it's time to celebrate. Actually, grief gets a lot louder for people this time of year. Holidays, are built around that togetherness. You might go to your grandparents' house that you've been going to for a very long time. Maybe you go to a different relative and you have maybe stock exchanges or, something along that nature where you have those traditions. And then grief highlights what or who is missing that time of year. Maybe there's an empty chair. Maybe that familiar laugh that you don't hear anymore. These traditions that I'm talking about suddenly kind of feel unfamiliar without the person who made them meaningful. And what makes it harder is the added pressure. The pressure to be happy in that time, the pressure to show up. Some people don't want to be around other people. It's very overwhelming. The pressure to enjoy the season. You might find yourself smiling on the outside. We like to hide a lot of things inside, a lot of our pain, a lot of our struggles. You might feel guilty for laughing one moment and crying the next. It's okay. Both of those are valid. You're going to have those ups and downs when you are around the holidays. Some people actually feel resentment around the holidays. All of these things are normal. Grief is not linear and it does not follow a schedule. It doesn't matter what time of year it is, what day it is, it's going to show up. And it usually shows up a little harder around the holidays. One of the hardest parts of grieving during the holidays is the feeling of that isolation, even when you're surrounded by other people. I feel that way sometimes when I was grieving my father. I was around people all the time and everybody would ask me how I was doing. And I, was loved and was checked in on, yet I felt alone. It's the same thing for the holidays when you're in a room full of all those family members and still feel that isolation. You can be part of the celebration and feel disconnected at the same time. Sometimes people don't know what to say to you. They'll ask you how you're doing, but that's kind of a baseline for them because they don't really know where your vulnerability is at that time. They don't want to trigger anything. They don't know what your response is going to be. And really, for you, it's whatever you feel comfortable. It's not about them, it's about you. If you feel like you need to share, then you need to share. You also need to tell people that if you're not okay, be upfront with it. Don't hide it. It's okay to not be okay. And it's also okay to tap out of the conversation if you need to. You don't need to overwhelm yourself even more so than you are now. Unfortunately, there's also some people that expect you to be back to quote unquote normal. There really isn't that set normal right now. You're trying to find that new normal. And it's kind of like an experiment, right? You don't know where you're at, and that's okay. But the truth is, there's no normal after a loss. There's only a new version of you. This is the newest version of you you've ever been. And this is one that is learning how to carry grief while still trying to live. Life doesn't stop when someone passes. It almost feels like it gets louder on top of everything else. So you have to give yourself grace, and we have to work things through on baby steps. If this is your first holiday without someone being there that you love, I'm going to say this to you gently, okay? You are not failing because it feels hard. You are not weak because you're struggling. And you're not doing grief wrong. Remember that. You are not doing grief wrong. You have to give yourself permission to do things differently this year. They are not the same. It's okay to skip some traditions. It's okay to create new ones. It's okay to leave the party early. If you're overwhelmed, I'm telling you, tap out. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say yes and change your mind later. You are just trying to figure things out. That grief really requires that flexibility, especially during the holidays. You don't know what's going to work and what's not. During the holidays, a lot of people that are grieving or feel like they're okay start feeling a little bit more irritable or exhausted. Tears that come out of nowhere, stuff that triggers that you might not have understood before, but now you do. You can probably link it to your loved one in some way. All of these are grief responses. Your body and your heart are working overtime, even if it doesn't feel like it. So if you're tired, if we're talking about that exhaustion, you need to rest. If you need that space, take it. You don't need to explain it to anybody. You just need to take that time for yourself. If you need to cry, let it go. Just cry as much as you need to. And again, you don't have to explain it to people. You don't owe anyone a performance. Something that I want to talk about and normalize is the mixed emotions that come with that holiday grief. You can most certainly miss someone deeply, but still have your moments of joy. You can still have that laughter and then feel guilty for laughing. You can feel grateful and heartbroken all at the same time. Grief is a mixed bag of things. You can call it whatever you like, but we need that grief to actually have that love that we have for that person, but it just doesn't have anywhere to go. Grief and that joy can actually coexist. Loving what you still have doesn't mean you've stopped loving what you lost. If you're supporting someone who is grieving during the holidays, this is really important to understand, okay? You don't need the right words for them. Your presence matters more than your advice. Being present for anyone that is grieving, or just being present for people in your life in general, is so important. And while you're grieving with someone or grieving for yourself, say your loved one's name. Acknowledge the loss. Let them feel whatever they feel without trying to fix it. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give is that permission, giving them permission to be sad, to be quiet. They don't have to say anything, just sit there with them. You don't have to get through the holidays perfectly. You just have to get through them honestly. Honor your grief, honor your love, honor yourself. If all you do this holiday season is breathe and make it to the next moment, that's enough. You are not alone in this. Your grief matters, and so does your heart. Lean on somebody that you feel is going to help you through these tough times. There's actually another layer of holiday grief too. It's anticipatory grief, which is that grief that shows up before the day even arrives. You're getting anxious. You know it's coming. You just don't know when. You might start feeling those heavy weeks ahead of time. You dread certain dates. You can feel it in the pit of your stomach. You start replaying memories before they even happen. You're trying to guess when the bad day is coming. For families and caregivers of someone who is terminally ill, the sparkling lights, festive decorations, the scents and sounds bring a realization that this may be their final holiday season with their loved one, triggering that anticipatory grief that I'm talking about. While that grief feeling that you typically get when a loved one passes, it is very possible to experience that beforehand. When a loved one will be passing soon, the end of life experience is enough to trigger that anticipatory grief. During this time, you may feel like you've already lost your loved one, even though the person is still alive. During the holidays, this kind of grief can really show up as maybe a consistent ache, because you're thinking about watching your loved one across the room and wondering, will this be our last tradition that we're doing together? Traditions that once felt comforting may suddenly feel painful because you're aware that they might not continue past this time. There can be that guilt for feeling sad when you're supposed to be grateful, or even for wanting the holidays to slow down because time flies way too fast. That anticipatory grief can bring complicated emotions. You might feel sadness mixed with love, or maybe fear mixed with gratitude. All of these feelings are valid. You have to remember that this grief is not a sign of giving up or losing hope. It's just a reflection of that deep connection and love you have for your loved one. Your heart is already beginning to adjust to a future it doesn't want, but senses it might be coming. Around the holidays, it can help to give yourself permission to feel both things at once, to show up for the moment and honor the grief beneath it. You don't have to make every moment perfect. Maybe sometimes just simply being present, taking those mental snapshots, or quietly acknowledging, this matters to me. That anticipatory grief deserves its space, especially during this season, and it asks us to pretend everything is fine. Let's go back to the traditions because that usually gets brought up to me a lot when I'm talking about holidays with my families. There's often that pressure to keep things the same for the sake of others, especially the kids in the family. But sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes keeping traditions exactly the same hurts more than it helps. You are allowed to adjust some things. You are allowed to create new ones, or none at all. Some people find comfort in lighting a candle, maybe setting out a photo of their loved one or saying their loved one's name out loud. Others really look for that distance from reminders this year. Both are okay. All of those are okay. We're looking for what comforts you. This time is kind of like experiments where we're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. If it doesn't work, we check the box and pivot and move on to the next thing. There is no right way to do this. Grief is deeply personal and it's completely different for every single person. And it's completely different on how you navigate the holidays. Don't feel guilty about trying to do something that helps you get through the holidays. And talking about that guilt, you might feel that guilt for not feeling festive this year. You might feel guilt for wanting to be alone and be isolated. Or you might feel guilty for not doing enough. You think you're not doing enough, so you think that they're going to judge you and say that you're maybe being lazy. That's not being lazy. You're just trying to navigate through the holidays and you haven't figured it out yet. You're trying to survive. And you can feel guilty about doing that too. Survival's guilt can creep in there quietly, especially when a person you lost would have loved the holidays. My dad loved the holidays, but I keep some of the traditions going with him, but I have changed some things as well. And that's for my comfort level and not anybody else's. If you feel like any of these, I want you to hear this, okay? Your ability to feel moments of peace or happiness does not dishonor your loss. It honors the love that still exists. Loving someone doesn't mean staying in pain forever. Now, one of the biggest issues with losing someone around the holidays is that it actually resurfaces other losses that you have had. The holidays can bring up grief you didn't even realize was still there, from previous deaths, some relationships that ended, some family dynamics that changed, maybe even some dreams that you once had. That's grief too. The loss of a dream is grief. You might feel like you're grieving too much, but you're not. Grief stacks. It layers, and the holidays tend to peel those layers back. Just remember to give yourself some grace and be gentle with yourself if things get heavier than you expected them. Now, jumping right off of that, if it starts to feel overwhelming, you're going to have to set some boundaries during these holidays. You are allowed to protect your energy. You are important enough to protect it. You don't owe anyone an explanation for how you grieve. You don't need to attend every gathering. Pick one. Maybe pick a couple. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to answer every question that people ask you. You don't have to stay longer than you can handle. A simple, I'm doing the best I can right now is enough. Just keep repeating it. Setting boundaries for yourself is not selfish, it's survival, especially around the holidays. You deserve this. If you're listening to this episode and this grief feels quiet or invisible, that matters too. Not everyone cries openly, not everyone talks about it. And that's okay. Some people carry grief silently. If that's you, I want to validate that your grief is still real. I know you're listening. If that's you, you don't have to prove it to anyone. Grief isn't measured by tears, it's measured by love. Say that to yourself again. Grief isn't measured by tears, it's measured by love. If you're someone who feels pressure to be strong for others during the holidays, I want you to gently challenge that. Strength doesn't mean holding everything in. Strength can look like asking for help. I know a lot of people don't like to ask for help. I'm one of those people. I'm getting better, kind of. But you need to ask for help. It definitely can look like crying. It can also look like saying this is hard. But you don't have to carry everyone else's comfort while ignoring your own pain. You only have so much in the tank. If you give it all away, there's nothing left for you. Your grief deserves that space. Your loved one deserves that space. I know this season is hard, and I want to encourage you to find one small thing that brings you comfort. Not joy, not happiness, just comfort. Maybe it's a quiet walk. Maybe it's a cup of coffee. Maybe it's a trusted friend. Maybe it's that moment of stillness. Comfort is enough right now. It's baby steps. And I want to speak directly to the part of you that is exhausted. The part that's tired of explaining, tired of pretending. The part that just wants this season to be over. You are not broken. You are grieving. And that takes energy. Rest when you can. Lower your expectations. Please give yourself some grace. As I close this reflection on grief, I just want to leave you with this thought, okay? Remember, grief is love that no longer has a place to go. During the holidays, that love can feel especially loud. But even in the ache, it reminds us of connection and meaning and depth. You don't have to rush through this season. It is not a race. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to do it honestly. And you don't have to do it alone. Thank you for spending this time with me and listening to this episode and really honoring your grief. Wherever you are in the process, be kind to yourself. All right, that was a heavy episode, but I hope it resonated with you. And if it does, I hope you share this with someone else, and I hope that helps them through this tough time. So, as I leave you always, I leave you with this: stay grounded, stay kind to yourself, and remember, strength begins with honesty. Until next time.